I'm Suite3 President Dave DelVecchio, and I'm speaking to you, business owners and nonprofit executive directors and C-level executives. As we've been doing security awareness trainings live and in person over the last few years, I'll say that on average, about 50% of the time, executives are conspicuously absent from the training sessions. And I know as an executive, it's easy to get sucked into the crisis of the day that makes it difficult to give up an hour and a half, which is what our sessions typically run, to sit in a security awareness training for your organization. And ultimately, I wanted to boil it down for you because this is an important 10-minute summary of the key components that as a business owner or executive, you should have top of mind when it comes to cybersecurity for your organization. Now, if I were to poll you and ask, why do you love what you do? I'm sure you love your employees, and I'm sure you love your organization's goals or your mission if you're a nonprofit. And I'm sure that you love what it is that you do and what you bring to the community, or however you're gaining value in the nature of your work. However, at the end of the day, one thing we all have in common is this: we're doing it for our families. And in my case, I have a wife and 2 daughters. My girls are 16 years old. They're in their junior year, and which hopefully means we'll get to visit campuses soon and do some campus visits, and I can be better prepared for the financial impact of having 2 kids in college at the same time in the not too distant future. But ultimately, our businesses allow us to provide for our families, and we need to protect our families. And just like we manage various risks in our organizations, financial risks and so forth, we need to manage technology-related risks and security-related risks with the same attention. So ultimately, I'm asking for your attention today to keep your family in mind. Now, if I ask you, what does a hacker look like, right? A lot of people fall back on what you see in the movies, the old war games. Do you want to play a game? And there's an aspect of that might still be true, but ultimately, hacking is now big business. And in some cases, it's not only business focused, but it's also malicious, and it's nation states that are behind this. The days of one-off lone wolves is kind of over. And there's a lot of sophistication behind these threats. So we have to keep that in mind. Ultimately, one of the biggest issues is that your data has value, and it has value in 2 ways. It has value to you because if you're blocked from accessing it and have to pay a ransom to regain access, it's something you would strongly consider doing. And similarly, if someone were to steal that data, if it has personally identifiable information, trade secrets, or is otherwise data of value, it has value to others, and it can be sold. And so because data is valuable, this is a risk that didn't exist to this depth 15 years ago that needs to be looked at as the most critical and valuable portion of your business. This is one of my worst fears, is that one of our clients will have to go through the pains of a ransomware event. And we've had a very good history of preventing our clients from that pain. However, it doesn't mean it's not possible. And we work hard to try to mitigate as many risks as possible. But people have to understand that the impact that this has on your business can be far reaching. The first of which is financial. This is an old screen capture. And if you look, it says they're looking for a $300 ransom. And I wish that was all that these folks are looking for. The fact is, over a 5-quarter term, the average value of the ransoms paid in verified incidents increased over 10 times. And now we're routinely well into the 6 figures. And you're talking about just the cost of paying for the ransom if you're unable to recover from your backups. And it's easier, and in some cases quicker, to simply have your insurance company compensate and pay for the ransom in order to expedite the recovery. It's driving the value of those ransoms paid up and up and up and up. And so ultimately, you're talking about real money, and it's getting expensive, and that's not taking into account the loss of business revenue and the impact on your business. It's purely the ransom has gone up 10 times. So keep that in mind. Ultimately, as I stated, the folks behind this aren't just Mr. Hoodie in his mom's basement. There are sophisticated software distribution networks that have been built out using the same business model as professional commercial software where you've got ransomware developers distributing through affiliates, and when victims fall victim to the ransomware, it's a payment that goes to the developers who pay a commission to those who actually helped to spread the malware. It's a very sophisticated business model, and so it needs to be thought of with that level of sophistication from a security standpoint as well. The good news is, though, they tend to be a little bit lazy. The fact is, many businesses simply ignore the risks, and they don't do the simple mitigation steps to reduce the likelihood. And if you can break the attacker's plan, right, by making their lives more difficult so that the easy things are avoided and aren't available to them to take advantage of, and you put in place rapid response and recovery capabilities, which is available through companies like ours, and if you eliminate those attack vectors, you make it hard for them to find other ways into your environment, you can reduce the risk substantially. One of the ways to do that is to get real about passwords. And when we talk about password policies with our clients, most of the pushback comes back from executives who do not want to be inconvenienced by having to remember a 14-character password and change it every 30 or 45 days. And there's a lot of various opinions in the industry about what makes the best password policy. This chart will demonstrate very clearly that once you start getting to that 12 to 14 character length, magic happens in terms of the amount of time it would take for a tool to be able to guess that password. So typically a 12 to 14 length character would be considered a standard minimum. Now, if you make those passwords complex and you have to change them every 30 days, for example, it leads to users being more likely to write things down, and it becomes more difficult to remember. And so there's a lot of discussions that can happen around passwords versus passphrases and how often you should rechange passwords, but those discussions need to occur. And if your business uses 8 characters or less, and you're not forced to change your password periodically, we need to change those settings immediately. And I need you to rethink the importance of passwords as part of your overall security stance. In addition, any opportunity you have to enable multi-factor authentication, I strongly urge you to do so. Only about half of the clients for whom we support Microsoft 365 cloud-based platforms have allowed us to enable multi-factor authentication. And the reason behind it isn't that they don't consider security important. They've accepted ease of use as being more important than security. Microsoft's head of security himself has been quoted as saying that enabling multi-factor authentication improves your security stance as an organization 99.9%. And while that may be a bit hyperbolic, the fact of the matter is, if the head of security is telling you it's a good idea to do, it's a good idea to do. And a little bit of inconvenience of having to accept that the notification on your phone when you're trying to log in at your laptop is a small price of inconvenience to pay for the extra security gained. It's a worthwhile initiative. And obviously, if you have the ability to set up multi-factor authentication on your banking websites or on vendor websites, on ordering websites, anytime you have the option of opting into multi-factor authentication, please make it the standard in your organization to do so. The fact of the matter is, executives are the most sought after phishing attempt recipients in the organization. And the reason being that the information going through your inbox is the most valuable. If someone were to gain unauthorized access, and I've got many client examples of people who've fallen for what are known as business email compromise events, where a man in the middle is monitoring your email without you knowing it because they have your username and password, and they have the ability to view your inbox and see all your mail that's coming or going, and you don't know they're there, and you're not blocking them because MFA isn't enabled. They then see that you're in communications, for example, with a client, and they send that client an email that looks like it's from you that says, hey, we've opened a new account. We only take ACH payments. Please send all future deposits into this new account. And we've had clients lose tens of thousands, and in one particular case, over $430,000 of deposits that were rerouted over 4 months to a fraudulent account because they fell victim to this sort of an event. It's critical that business owners understand the risks of business email compromise and ultimately develop a strong, healthy dose of skepticism so that, in addition to multi-factor blocking what I just described, if you receive an email that's fraudulent, that's trying to get you to act in a way that you wouldn't normally act, that you have a healthy dose of skepticism that would prevent you from doing something you'll regret. For example, if you get an email that asks you to give your password, hey, it's John from Suite3, Dave from Suite3, please send me your login credentials. We need to do an update. Never, ever, ever respond to that email with your login credentials. We should never ask you for a password over an email. That's an example of social engineering. We're trying to get someone to act when they shouldn't. Every aspect of an email may clue you in. If you're getting emails from senders that you don't recognize, or instead of from Suite3, for example, maybe it was sent from Dave at Suite3 and they left the E out. That would be a fraudulent email. So watch that from line and make sure it's legit. If you're getting emails about subjects at odd times, that, watching the date stamps and timestamps is critical. I got an email from a vendor last night at 3:45 in the morning, and I emailed them to verify it was legitimate this morning, and it was, because I don't normally get emails in off hours from them. And so understanding the timing of emails is critical. If the subject doesn't match the body, make sure that it's an intended email. If there are attachments that you're not expecting, do not open those attachments. There's a lot of malware that gets buried into attachments that once they're open to get triggered on your system. And this was something people got really good at spotting and avoiding in the past that seems to be coming back. So just like a bad penny, it comes around periodically. Watch for those attachments you're not expecting. Be careful of hyperlinks. If you get an email saying your password's about to expire, click here. Don't click here. Ultimately, what you want to do is log into whatever platform they're saying needs a password reset and triggering it through the platform itself. You don't have to use the convenience link in an email. And if you're on a receiving end of an email that was sent to 50 people and you don't know the other 49, sometimes that can be a little bit fishy too. So every aspect of an email can clue you in if it's a phishing attempt. And ultimately, that healthy dose of skepticism is to treat every email as suspect until it proves it's legitimate. If you look at an email and says, is this from who I expected? Did they send it when I expected? Does it have any attachments or not if I wasn't expecting them? Does the content make sense? There's no odd hyperlinks. Okay, that's good. So take that opposite approach of suspecting every email is fraudulent, and you're going to become an expert at spotting phishing emails to protect your business. The last line of defense, if all else fails, is the importance of cyber insurance. I was talking with our insurance agency, who also is a client, and I asked the question one day, what percentage of businesses that they write general liability insurance for also have a cyber insurance policy? And he told me 15%. That's 15%. And I was shocked, because the fact is, these sort of risks like business email compromise or fraudulent funds transfers are much more prevalent or likely than a fire or flood type incident or other general liability concerns. So if you don't have cyber insurance in place, I strongly urge you to talk to your insurance professional about getting a plan in place. If you've had one in place and it's been around for a while and you haven't increased your coverage, do so, because the coverages you bought 3 years ago will not cover you based upon the increases in the value of those ransomware events. And also make sure you thoroughly understand your responsibilities, that if you have a cyber incident, is there a 24-hour hotline or some other way of notification that you have to notify them before Suite3 or another organization begins the recovery efforts? And that if there's anything you need to do that would best enable you to be reimbursed or to have those costs covered, that you know what those responsibilities are, because we've heard horror stories through our peer network of clients of our peers that have had claims denied because they didn't follow the rules that they didn't know existed. So make sure you have a good relationship with your insurance professional and you dot every I and cross every T. Ultimately, as a business owner, we have to work together to balance security with ease of use. we can make an environment 100% secure. You will have no incidents. You will also have no access to any of your information. So we need to be able to offer just enough ease of use while keeping security in mind and maintaining that balance moving forward. Ultimately, we've been using the phrase keep calm and compute on. By adopting these mindsets, that security mindset, if you will, you'll be able to keep calm and compute on as well. If you'd like to watch our entire series, please do. There's a lot more detail in there, but I've condensed it down to what's relevant to you today, because ultimately what you want to do is protect yourself the best you can. In order to stay up to date, please feel free to follow us on social media. Usually I stop there. On this deck, I'm including my email address, which you should all have already. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on any of these items. I would be happy to talk to you and come up with a security plan for your business, which makes the most sense for you. Because ultimately, we want to protect your employees. We want to protect your data. We want to protect your business, but we want to help protect your families as well as our own. And so ultimately, let's do what's right. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the attention. Let's keep calm and compute on.